It starts with a summons. A single piece of correspondence that carries the weight of a divine command, echoing from the marble halls of the Vatican all the way to the humid, bustling streets of Manila. When a pope calls, you don't negotiate. You answer. On December 8, 2019, that call came for Luis Antonio Tagle. Pope Francis, in a move that stunned the Catholic world, was asking one of his most beloved lieutenants to abandon his post. He was asking the man they called the Asian Francis to leave the flock that adored him and step into the bureaucratic machinery of Rome. But to understand the gravity of this farewell and the shockwaves it sent through the Philippines, we have to understand the man. Who is this figure who rose from a modest family to become a prince of the church? How did he survive the changing tides of history, from the papacy of Francis to the election of Pope Leo XIV? And why does his story matter for the future of a faith followed by billions? This isn't just a biography. This is the anatomy of a modern saint in the making. This is the story of the boy from Manila, the bicycle bishop, and the man who held the hand of history. Our narrative begins far from the gold and velvet of the Vatican. It begins in the chaotic, vibrant heart of the Philippines. Born on June 21, 1957, Luis Antonio Gokim Tagle, known universally to friends and family simply as Chito, was not born into dynastic power. He was a son of the middle class, raised in a devout household where faith wasn't a Sunday obligation. It was the atmosphere they breathed. But here is the twist. The young Chito had absolutely no intention of becoming a priest. His dream was medicine. He wanted to be a doctor, to heal bodies, not souls. The trajectory of his life was altered by a prank, a cosmic joke played by his parish priest. The priest tricked the young Tagle into taking a seminary entrance exam, framing it as a challenge rather than a vocation. Tagle took the test, perhaps just to prove he could ace it. He passed, and in that passing, the door to medicine closed, and the door to the priesthood swung open. It's a moment of divine humor that Tagle himself still laughs about, a reminder that sometimes destiny arrives disguised as a trick. He entered the San Jose Seminary, and it quickly became apparent that beneath the humble, joking exterior of Chito lay a terrifyingly sharp intellect. He devoured philosophy at the Ateneo de Manila University. He mastered theology at the Jesuit-run Loyola School. He wasn't just studying the faith. He was deconstructing it, understanding its bones and marrow. By the time he was ordained a priest for the Diocese of Imus in 1982, his superiors knew they had a problem. He was too smart to stay local. They needed to weaponize that brain for the universal church. So, in 1985, they sent the young Father Tagle across the ocean to the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. This wasn't a vacation. This was the forging of a theologian. Tagle spent years dissecting the doctrine of episcopal collegiality, a complex theological concept about how bishops and the Pope share power. It sounds dry, but it is actually the blueprint for a democratic, collaborative church. He didn't just pass. He graduated summa cum laude. His mentor, the legendary theologian Joseph Kamonchak, didn't mince words. He called Tagle one of the best students I had in over 40 years of teaching. Let that sink in. In 4 decades of teaching the elite minds of the church, the boy from Manila was the standout. When he returned to the Philippines in 1992, he was a heavyweight. He joined the International Theological Commission, sitting at the same table as Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, the man who would become Pope Benedict XVI. But Tagle never let the ivory tower trap him. He refused to be a dusty academic. He hosted a television show, The Word Exposed, where he broke down complex scripture for taxi drivers and housewives. He was bridging the gap between high theology and the daily grind. Then came 2001. Pope John Paul II appointed him Bishop of Imus. He was 44 years old, returning to his home turf. And this is where the legend of Tagle truly begins. A typical bishop in the Philippines might be expected to live in a palace, driven by chauffeurs, separated from the grime of poverty. Tagle looked at that expectation and shattered it. He didn't want a driver. He didn't want a luxury car. The people of Imus began to see a strange sight. Their bishop, the leader of the diocese, pedaling a bicycle through the heat and dust of the city. They saw him squeezing onto crowded public buses, sweating alongside laborers. He was making a radical statement without saying a word. I am not above you. I am one of you. He turned his bishopric into a field hospital. He spent his days not in meetings, but in the homes of the poor, listening to mothers who couldn't feed their children, to fathers who had lost their jobs. He practiced the theology of listening. He understood that you cannot lead people if you do not know their pain. This wasn't a performance for the cameras. It was the raw, unfiltered reality of his ministry. The Vatican was watching. You cannot hide a light that bright. In 2011, Pope Benedict XVI tapped him for the big league, Archbishop of Manila. He was now the spiritual leader of the capital, a position of immense political and social power. He used that platform to thunder against corruption and champion the rights of the marginalized. But he did it with a disarming smile that made even his enemies listen. A year later, he was a cardinal, a prince of the church. And when Pope Francis was elected in 2013, the two men found in each other a spiritual mirror. They were cut from the same cloth, men who preferred the smell of sheep to the smell of incense. The media dubbed Tagle the Asian Francis. We saw the climax of this bond in January 2015. Pope Francis visited the Philippines. 6 million people flooded Rizal Park, the largest papal gathering in human history. And there, in the middle of that sea of humanity, the Pope and the Cardinal embraced. It was a signal to the world. But every rise demands a sacrifice. On December 8, 2019, the summons came. Pope Francis appointed Tagle as the prefect of the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples. It was a massive promotion, placing him in charge of the Church's missions across Africa and Asia. But for the people of Manila, it was a heartbreak. This was the heartfelt farewell. It wasn't just a change of job, it was a severance of physical presence. Tagle had to stand before the people he had cycled with, the people he had laughed and cried with, and say goodbye. He was leaving the streets of Manila for the offices of Rome. He was sacrificing his home for the sake of the Universal Church. He arrived in Rome in February 2020. Why? Just as the world was about to change. He navigated the pandemic, the lockdowns, and the shifting politics of the Vatican. He became the architect of a new missionary age. And then, history turned the page again. We have to look at the momentous events of 2025. On April 21st, 2025, the world mourned. Pope Francis, the disruptor, passed away. The Church held its breath. The conclave gathered, and on May 8th, 2025, white smoke rose again. The American Cardinal Robert Prevost stepped onto the balcony, taking the name Pope Leo XIV. In the uncertainty of a new reign, many wondered what would happen to the Asian Francis. Would he be sidelined? Would the new American Pope want a new team? The answer came swiftly. On May 24th, 2025, Pope Leo XIV didn't just keep Tagle, he elevated him. He appointed Tagle to the rank of Cardinal Bishop, giving him the titular diocese of Albano, the very title Leo XIV had held before his election. It was a symbolic passing of the torch. During the inauguration mass, it was Tagle who placed the ring of the fisherman on the finger of Pope Leo XIV. From the boy tricked into a seminary exam to the man placing the ring of power on a pope's hand, Luis Antonio Tagle's journey is a testament to a simple, powerful truth. In the Catholic Church, the way up is down. You rise by serving. You lead by listening. And sometimes the most heartbreaking farewells are just the prelude to a new, magnificent beginning.